Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and I want to talk to you today about one of the longest standing students of Professor X, one of the original X-Men team members, and arguably one of the most powerful mutants in existence, Jean Grey. Now Jean has been shown countless times to be a pillar of compassion and heroism, often placing herself in danger in order to aid her allies. However, as you might expect from a person who could be manipulated by the will of the Phoenix Force or through mind control, there have been a fair few times that her morality, well, it's been a bit inverted. So what we're going to do today in honor of the upcoming X-Men Dark Phoenix film is explore the darker side of Grey. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 worst things that Jean Grey has ever done. Number 10. She killed Rogue. In the X-Men Noir series, there are a shockingly low amount of heroes, mainly because they've all banded together into a sort of mafia, and being in a mafia has shockingly made them very partial to crime. Now, things start off pretty bad with the apparent death of Jean Grey being explained in the first issue. However, this is soon revealed to be a setup, as Jean Grey instead murdered Rogue in order to take her place and free herself from this universe's version of Professor X. It's impossible for her to not come out of this looking like one of the good guys, and her choices showcase an unabashed selfishness and disregard for human life. Yes, the rest of the populace of this world are also a little bit twisted, but still, this is completely out of character for the stalwart of justice that we thought we knew. Number 9. She messed with her past self. Lady Zorn was a brilliant character, wasn't she? I mean, full body armor, a sweet-ass cape, and a set of flaming powers that put Pyro to shame. Ah, Pyro, you suck. There was a reason why so many of us thought that Zorn was the bee's knees, and that was because it turned out that it was actually Jean Grey herself who travelled back in time. Once this is revealed, she waves away any accusations of why she didn't inform the team and, more importantly, her younger self. However, it might have been for the best if she had. After all, Jean Grey is a mutant who has to undergo strict training just to keep her powers from erupting and enveloping everything around her, so a few tips from her future self on how to control them might have been a bit helpful. It's pretty much an unwritten rule that if you travel back in time and meet your younger self, that you should impart some wisdom. Just like I wish I could go back and tell myself not to bed your mother as that cucumber went rogue, and I've been itching for days. Zorn chose not to, effectively putting herself through needless torture and rigors, and also, yes, that is my one per list. Number 8. She became a supervillain. I mean, you can't really deny that this shouldn't be on the list, right? I mean, look at the title, it's pretty clear cut, right? Well, for those of you seeking a bit of backstory as to why Jean Grey joining the Sinister Six after a bout of brainwashing was pretty rough reading. Now, in Earth 295, Jean Grey takes on this villainous job come the defeat of Apocalypse, after which she's kidnapped by Mr. Sinister and mind-controlled to join his team of villains. Grey is then set against her former friends and almost murders Sunfire before she is brought back to her senses. Now here's the thing, being a supervillain would be bad enough, right? But what she does to Sunfire is pretty atrocious, nearly charbroiling them alive and only being saved when Jean comes to her senses. Also, it's a really somber tone when she begins this arc as a villain and ends it as the new leader of the X-Men. Not gonna lie, I wouldn't want her fast track to the top so readily after almost being able to serve one of the team as a Sunday roast. Number 7. She swapped Wolverine and Spider-Man's minds. In Ultimate Spider-Man number 66 and 67, we see the somewhat unusual story of Spider-Man and Wolverine being mind-swapped. This scheme is, in the end, revealed to have been orchestrated by none other than Jean Grey, who swapped their minds to teach Wolverine a lesson about not hitting on her, making the totally innocent Spider-Man just collateral in her attempt to get revenge. It's a bit mean, right? I mean, Spider-Man was just minding his own business and then zap, now you're a grumpy Canadian with more hair than a bath full of Veet could handle. What's also extremely short-sighted was the fact that because the terms of this mind swap was the last place that Logan wanted to be, it could have also been any one of his villainous foes who could have ruined his name, or, well, ruined it further, I mean, and would have put others in extreme danger. The story was played for laughs, but it could have gotten very dark very quickly. Number 6. She didn't tell her family she was alive. After the Phoenix-revived Jean Grey is discovered by the Fantastic Four, the hero finally breaks out of her long-time coma, ready to get back into the world. While this doesn't initially sound too bad, it does contain one pretty strong questionable moment, in that Jean almost immediately states that she doesn't intend to tell her loved ones that she's, in fact, alive. Now, to be fair, it's partially justifiable, as trying to work out how to tell people that you aren't dead probably does take a little work. However, the issue with taking your time on the matter means that there is more time for things to go wrong, which is exactly what happens when her friends come and find out that she's alive, and it makes things very, very awkward. Now, it all depends on your viewpoint as to whether this is a truly evil action or not, but wouldn't you want to know if one of your best mates was actually just chilling by the poolside and not 6 feet under? Number 5. She rejected her children. Now, admittedly, Jean Grey has had so many children appear into her life claiming her to be their mother that you'd understand why she generally refuses to believe them, as there's only so many kids from the future you can accept as believable, right? However, when Rachel Summers, who does, by the way, look exactly like Jean Grey, reveals that Jean is her mother, Jean goes into a total nosedive about her parental status, breaking down into literal tears at the concept. Now, weirder still, she tells Scott that she didn't dislike the idea of being Rachel's mother, but it was just a lot, which probably would have been lovely to hear at a point in time wherein Rachel hadn't fled the scene convinced that her beloved mother hated her. While Jean and Rachel never have an entirely easy relationship, it doesn't seem all that unfair to suggest that breaking down into hardcore sobbing when someone claims to be your kid isn't the most positive reaction possible. Which reminds me, I should probably be nicer to Ewan. Number 4. Tortured Emma Frost. Emma Frost and Jean Grey's tumultuous relationship is one of the more well-known and consistent X-Men conflicts throughout the superhero team's existence. In Jean's defense, Emma is often incredibly possessive and inappropriate with Scott Summers, even when Jean and Scott are together, which naturally draws the two into conflict. For example, in New X-Men number 139, Jean discovers Emma's counseling of her husband Scott actually involves the two having a telepathic affair. What this fury doesn't justify, though, is how she chooses to deal with this anger. Jean goes through Emma's private and most delicate memories and forces Emma to relive and remember them in a series of moments that hurts the White Queen with almost surgical levels of precision. While it's fair to accept that Jean might be angry, this level of revenge and the fact that she was torturing Frost is more than a little unsettling, especially because it seems to ignore the fact that Scott was also complicit in the mental affair. Number 3. Killed the Hellfire Club. Given the Hellfire Club continually stalk, harass, and just generally grief Jean Grey, it's fair to say that over the course of her interactions with them, some are not likely going to be pleasant. There is, however, a pronounced difference between her maybe beating them up a little bit and Jean turning their very existence into cinders. Now, foolishly, the Hellfire Club kind of brought this on themselves by unleashing the Phoenix, but my lord, once the juice was loose, she burned down the bloody hoose. A hero is defined by their own limits, and it's been shown time and time again that there should be a line that you do not cross in order for justice to ring true. Here, though, there was no line in the sand, and if there was, then the very ground was itself turned to ash. It goes beyond revenge and into something much, much worse. Number 2. She misused her mind-reading powers. Having the power of telepathy and the ability to read people's minds always seems like a double-edged sword to me. On the plus side, you can tell what everyone is thinking about, but on the other side, you can tell what all the other people are thinking about, and quite frankly, you're likely to see things that you really shouldn't. Therefore, when Jean Grey uses her powers, she can sometimes come across as cold, mean, or downright cruel. Although there's far too many examples to choose from, an especially controversial use of Jean's powers appears in all new X-Men number 40, wherein the hero in training tells the young Iceman that she's read his thoughts and knows he's gay, despite the fact that it also must be clear from Bobby's thoughts that he's having some real issues with understanding his sexuality. Now, in the end, it had a positive result, with Iceman learning to accept himself, which is so important. But to use her powers to effectively out someone before they were ready is a line that no hero should really cross. And number 1, she wiped out the dbaris. Of all the assorted bad things the Phoenix has prompted Jean to do, her provoked interaction with the dbari people and their planet is unmistakably the very worst. Because when Jean Grey is possessed by the Phoenix Force and became the Dark Phoenix, the first thing that she does is consume the nearest star available, which unfortunately is actually the sun for one of the nearby populated planets, meaning that when Grey decided to have a munch on that, it wiped out the population almost entirely. And you know what else sucks more than that? Finding out that the people living there were a peace-loving civilization, meaning that Jean Grey took out one of the few peace-loving planets in existence, well, out of it. Oh, actually, no, the worst bit is actually this, because remember when I said almost entirely about the survivors? Well, that's because there were a few survivors, and now they've got a hatred for humanity, which I'm sure won't come back to bite us in the ass at all, will it now? Thanks, Jean. Brilliant. And there we go, those were the 10 worst things that Jean Grey has ever done. But there is one thing that I should say, and it's something that the X-Men actually teach us as a whole across the board, and that is, it is okay to be different. And much like Jean Grey when she's having a battle within her own mind, we could all learn a lesson from that too, and look to get help from others if we need it. Remember, friends, family, and professionals in the support industry, they do care and they do want to speak to you about stuff if you're struggling with things, okay? Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye!